the lies they have told, the intrusive interviews they've given. I mean, what Thomas Markle did, which was simply trying to restore his dignity, was really a bagatelle compared to what they've done.
What if the royal family's biggest scandal isn't about affairs, money, or power, but about something as simple as a birthday? Meghan Markle's real age has become one of the most shocking royal mysteries of the decade. And the evidence? A single magazine page, a few photos, and the sworn words of her own father. Could it be possible that Meghan is not 43 but 50? And if so, what else about the monarchy's carefully controlled story is a lie?
That story I never have since it came out. And
that she was 21 years old at the time of publication. That would make her birth year at around 1976. However, why is it saying here she was born 5 years later in 1981?
The controversy started with something that looked harmless at first. Page 90 of 17 magazine, dated March 1997. Buried in the issue, Meghan Markle was casually listed as 21 years old. At first glance, it might not mean much. But do the math. If Meghan was really born in 1981, as she claims, then in 1997 she would have been just 15 years old, not 21. That's not a small typo, it's a 6-year gap. And 6 years isn't the kind of mistake you just shrug off. Her father, Thomas Markle, was quick to point out that this timeline doesn't add up with what he remembers. For him, this wasn't gossip, it was testimony. He insisted the official records didn't match the daughter he raised. His words cut through like a courtroom statement, blunt, direct, impossible to ignore. And it wasn't just Thomas. Meghan's half-sister, Samantha Markle, backed up the suspicion in her book, The Diary of Princess Pushy's Sister, where she too questioned the official version of Meghan's life story. When you put the pieces together, the magazine's printed words, Thomas Markle's accusations and Samantha's claims, it paints a picture that's hard to dismiss. And once fans online discovered this detail, they pounced. Reddit threads lit up. TikToks pulled millions of views. And one blunt post summed it up. This isn't gossip. It's ink on paper. That was the spark. And soon, the fire spread to photos, documents, and the palace itself.
Finally, at the document that everyone jumped on at the beginning, offending a little while back, here's a tweet from Jane Whittle. And it caused a stir because it showed the biography of Megxie where she described herself as Caucasian rather than biracial. Guys, look, I understand why so many people are upset with her. She has spread so many malicious lies, her own family, and Samantha Markle, to me, is the one that if she really confirmed it.
When Thomas Markle speaks, people don't hear the warmth of a father hoping to reconcile. Instead, they hear something that lands more like evidence in a courtroom. His words aren't coded in bitterness or gossip. They're delivered like sworn statements. And recently, he dropped a claim so sharp that it sliced right into Meghan's carefully built biography. She's telling lies. In one interview, he didn't hesitate. He said he loved both of his daughters, but one of them was lying. For critics, it wasn't just the ramblings of an estranged parent, it was a bombshell. Especially when his words lined up with that 17 magazine page. The piece of ink that suggested Meghan was born in 1976, not 1981. But the suspicions didn't stop there. Attention quickly turned to Meghan's paper trail, where more contradictions seemed to hide in plain sight. The biggest? Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor's birth certificate. Originally, the document listed Meghan's full legal name, Rachel Meghan Markle. But weeks later, the certificate was amended. Her given names were erased, leaving only her royal title, Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. The palace dismissed it as a minor formatting adjustment, but critics weren't buying it. To them, it looked like proof that even official documents could be edited, polished, and rewritten to fit the story the palace wanted the world to see. And that was the real danger. Because if a royal birth certificate can be changed after the fact, then what's stopping a birth year from being quietly rewritten too? Online commentators jumped on the connection immediately. One viral Reddit post called the edit the smoking gun, a sign that royal paperwork was never as untouchable as people believed. For Thomas Markle, this was validation. His interviews were no longer just family drama. They felt like testimony supported by documents and timelines. And as these contradictions stacked up, fans began to wonder, if Meghan's age could be blurred, what else about her life and the palace's narrative could be rewritten? The cracks in Meghan's biography were now spreading outward, and the next wave of evidence would come not from paperwork, but from photographs that raised even more uncomfortable questions.
Very same question, it looked at what her sister, Samantha Markle, has said. Samantha has called out many of her lies.
If a magazine page was the spark, then the photos were the wildfire. Soon, people online began digging into Meghan's university years, pulling out snapshots that didn't seem to match her official timeline. One particular image, a salsa club photo from her days at Northwestern University, went viral. At first glance, it's innocent. Meghan smiling in the back row, surrounded by classmates. But here's where the internet pounced. Many of those classmates, now in their mid-50s, looked far older than Meghan's official birth year would suggest. If Meghan was truly born in 1981, she should have been several years younger than the group. But if she was actually born in 1975 or 1976, suddenly the picture made a lot more sense. Fans wasted no time making side-by-side comparisons. TikTok videos flashed the magazine page next to reunion rosters, with captions like, "The math doesn't lie." One viral clip even cut from the 17 magazine listing to the Salsa Club snapshot, declaring, "She fits the class of 76, not 81. Within days, these posts racked up millions of views. It didn't stop there. Reddit threads ballooned with amateur detectives combing through yearbooks, alumni lists, and event flyers. One even claimed that a Northwestern Salsa Club flyer grouped participants by decade of birth, casting more doubt on Meghan's official story. Whether the evidence was ironclad or not didn't seem to matter. In today's media world, perception often outweighs reality, and perception was turning into ridicule. Memes exploded across Twitter, mocking the supposed age gap. One rebranded 17 magazine's cover as 21 going on 15. Another captioned her graduation photo with the line, "High school again." Meghan wasn't just under investigation anymore. She was becoming a meme economy. For the palace, this was a nightmare. In an institution built on precision and control, even small inconsistencies can become cracks that threaten the entire wall. Birthdays, anniversaries, and family trees aren't trivial details. They're the foundation of royal credibility. And now, with Meghan's age under scrutiny, the palace looked less like the keeper of history and more like the author of a shaky script. The scandal was no longer just about Meghan. It had turned into a larger question. Can the monarchy even control its own story anymore? For the royal family, the danger wasn't Meghan's exact age. It was credibility. In an institution where every birth, wedding, and anniversary is logged with precision, even the slightest inconsistency feels catastrophic. If a duchess's birthday can't be trusted, then what else might be flexible? Commentators warned that this wasn't just a family feud. It was a test of the monarchy's ability to control its own narrative. Fans online compared it to Hollywood starlets shaving years off their resumes, but with one key difference. Meghan wasn't just an actress anymore. She was royalty. And the monarchy trades in credibility, not casting calls. Meanwhile, Meghan's response was silence. No interviews, no clarifications, not even a carefully worded statement. Supporters praised it as dignity. Why dignify gossip? But critics saw something different. Evasion. A Daily Mail op-ed summed it up bluntly. The longer she waits, the more people assume she has something to hide. And that silence became fuel. Every day without a response hardened the perception that Meghan was hiding something. Online sleuths doubled down, digging through yearbooks, alumni lists, even old club flyers. Each repost, each meme, kept the story alive. For the palace, the silence was even worse. Reports suggested insiders loathed the attention, fearing it chipped away at the monarchy's most valuable currency, control. From Princess Diana's panorama confession to Prince Andrew's BBC disaster, history had shown one thing clearly. Once credibility cracks, it rarely heals. If page 90 of 17 magazine cracked Meghan's story, Then Archie's birth certificate edit blew it wide open. At first, the official record listed her full name, Rachel Meghan Markle. But weeks later, the document was quietly amended. Her given names were erased, leaving only her royal title, Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. To palace officials, it was nothing, a formatting correction. But for critics, it was symbolic proof that even the most sacred royal documents weren't untouchable. If a birth certificate could be rewritten, then why not a birthday? Why not a timeline? Online sleuths seized on the edit immediately. One viral post declared it the smoking gun, not because the names mattered, but because precedent did. Royal history thrives on unshakable facts. Births, marriages, deaths, all carefully logged in centuries-old ledgers. If those records start shifting, the entire foundation begins to wobble. And this was the deeper danger. It wasn't about whether Meghan was 43 or 50. It was about whether the monarchy itself was willing to curate reality. Commentators argued that once you admit flexibility in one royal fact, you open the door to questioning all of them. For Thomas Markle, the certificate was vindication. His accusations no longer sounded like the mutterings of a bitter father. They aligned with documented changes, fueling the perception that something was being hidden. His words, "She's telling lies," hit harder when paired with a royal record that had already been altered. The story was no longer about one duchess's biography. It was about whether the monarchy's greatest weapon, its aura of certainty, had been compromised. And if that aura cracks, history shows it may never return. Once the contradictions hit social media, the story stopped being a quiet rumor and became a viral spectacle. TikTok compilations stitched together the 17 magazine page with alumni photos and reunion rosters, racking up millions of views. Reddit threads ballooned overnight as amateur detectives compared yearbooks, dug through flyers, and built elaborate timelines. But the internet doesn't just investigate, it ridicules. Within days, memes rebranded 17 magazine's cover as 21 going on 15, mocking the alleged 6-year age jump. Graduation photos were captioned, "High school again," turning the scandal into punchlines that spread faster than fact checks ever could. The meme economy was relentless. One viral TikTok flashed her salsa club photo, overlaid with the words, "Do the math. It doesn't lie." Another Twitter thread compiled every contradiction, ending with the line, "If she can bend her birthday, what else bends?" Each post fed the algorithm, ensuring the controversy stayed alive far longer than traditional news cycles. And that's where the palace lost control. Royal institutions are built on ritual, precision, and dignity, but online culture thrives on chaos, humor, and contradiction. The more the palace stayed silent, the more the internet filled the gap with its own narrative. Commentators warned this wasn't about Meghan's exact age anymore. It was about the monarchy's ability to survive in a world where every archived page, every forgotten photo can be pulled out, fact-checked, and turned into a meme. The question wasn't, how old is Meghan Markle anymore? It was, can the monarchy's story survive the internet? By this stage, commentators weren't just comparing Meghan's age mystery to Hollywood vanity tricks. They were stacking it against the monarchy's worst credibility crises. Some said it echoed Prince Andrew's infamous BBC interview, where one disastrous night destroyed decades of reputation. Others compared it to Princess Diana's panorama confession, which blindsided the palace and shook public trust for generations. The message was clear. This wasn't about one duchess anymore. It was about the monarchy's fragile control of its own story. If a single magazine clipping could spark global headlines, what might happen when the next forgotten document surfaces? A yearbook entry, a program, a casual remark in an old interview, suddenly, everything felt like a potential landmine. For the palace, the silence was strategic. Officials refused to dignify the controversy, hoping it would fade. But history shows silence often backfires. Princess Diana's struggles, Prince Andrew's scandal, each time the family's refusal to engage only deepened suspicion. And in Meghan's case, her refusal to respond hardened the perception of a duchess with something to hide. Meanwhile, fans online reframed the debate. It wasn't about whether Meghan was 43 or 50. It was about whether the monarchy itself could survive in an age of TikTok sleuths and meme warfare. If the royals couldn't control a birthday, how could they control narratives about power, money, or politics? Commentators warned that the institution thrives on certainty and ritual. Every birth, every anniversary, every carefully staged photo is meant to reinforce stability. But once doubt creeps in, trust rarely returns. Meghan's alleged age gap had snowballed into something far bigger, a test of whether the monarchy's image was still unshakable, or if it was already crumbling. By now, Meghan's silence had become its own scandal. Each day without a response fueled more speculation, more memes, more viral threads. Supporters praised her restraint, calling it dignity in the face of baseless noise. But critics framed it differently: evasion. A Daily Mail op-ed warned, "Her silence speaks louder than words." And for millions online, that silence hardened into certainty. Meghan had something to hide. The financial stakes added pressure. Reports suggested Netflix, which invested heavily in Meghan and Harry's projects, was watching closely. Could public doubt over Meghan's credibility ripple into streaming numbers, sponsorships, even royal-related tourism? In today's economy, image is currency, and a single contradiction can cost millions. For the monarchy, the fallout was worse. This wasn't just a duchess shaving off a few years. It was a test of whether the world's most carefully curated institution could still dominate its own story. From Diana's tell-all interview to Andrew's BBC disaster, the royals had learned one lesson. Once credibility cracks, it never fully heals. And that's what made this scandal so dangerous. It wasn't about numbers, it was about trust. Fans, critics, and commentators all circled back to the same chilling question. If Meghan Markle's timeline can be questioned, how safe are the stories told about the rest of the royal family? A single magazine page had spiraled into a cultural storm. Memes mocked, TikToks exposed, Reddit threads dissected. Meghan's biography was no longer just her own. It was a battlefield testing the monarchy's strength in the digital age. In the end, Meghan may not only be remembered as the Duchess of Sussex, she may be remembered as the Duchess of Contradiction, the woman whose silence and disputed timeline exposed the monarchy's greatest weakness: doubt.